So we're going to roll out a software asset management program, and we're going to use Lansweeper as the basis of our SAM data. That is the anticipation and the expectation of upper management and your SAM team, on the assumption that since Lansweeper has the remarkable ability at any time to understand all of the software found on all of the hardware across the corporation, that it's also a SAM tool. This is a naive expectation, but you can't blame them for that assumption. And of course, you do not want to install another inventory tool and another SQL Server database to put in a separate SAM system when all of the data for SAM is found within Lansweeper. But what they don't realize, and you probably have realized, is that the devil is in the details when it comes to understanding the nature of software, the licensing of software, the usage rights of software. And the reason why that is that it's a moving target that the vendors put upon the consumers of their software. They change the license usage rights. They change the license metrics. They change whether or not it's licensable. And sometimes companies acquire companies. So a little utility company all of a sudden gets acquired by a larger company that now has the ability to audit you. Do you know who owns WinZip? Well, I'm Steve O'Halloran from Assetlabs, and I'm here to show you Assetlabs Streamline for Lansweeper. It's a SAM add-in for both the Legacy Install Edition and the Cloud Edition of Lansweeper. And what we have the ability to do with Streamline is to convert, modify, and enrich the deep data set of Lansweeper and make it available to the SAM team with no impact on the Lansweeper database, no impact on the devices, no impact on the Lansweeper operations, and no impact on you. Let me show you here. Let me just flip it over here. One moment, please. And let's take a look at the data that we have here within this Lansweeper of account of 2,900 different software titles and about 7,200 assets. What we've done is that we've put it into a Streamline account here at Assetlabs, and there it is, the Lansweeper Cloud Client. So you're seeing Streamline. It's exactly the same amount of data, but the data has been modified. It's not gone though. So what we do here is that we focus on simply software and hardware. And by that, what we have done is that we have tapped into the original Lansweeper database once in a 15-second query through a small utility that collects only the installed software of the device. And then it picks up some primitive attributes of the device, the manufacturer, the make, the model, the CPU. No end user behavior, no configuration of the device such as how many hard drives does it have, its IP address, its network configuration, what monitors it has. None of that makes any difference for software and asset management. We're down to simply understanding the core aspects of the hardware and all of the installed software. That's it. Much smaller data set, and it's been retained in the Streamline account. Now, things look incredibly different here. So it's still the same number of software titles as you can see here. But what we've done is that we've invoked a rigorous amount of normalization and multidimensional categorization. What's its license types? 3 different levels of functional categories, support information, budgeting information. All of that has been applied to the data that you're about to see. And by doing that, we've actually reduced the data set, removing errors, misspellings, and even acquisitions. You can see on the vendor section down here that we started off, the Lansweeper data set gave us 844 unique software publishers, but we looked at it, and from our database, we went, no, there's actually only 638. Many of those have been acquired. Many of those are variations or mutations on a particular vendor. Adobe Systems Incorporated, right? We'll even take a look at, WinZip Computing, WinZip Software Corporation, Corel. Okay, and the same thing happens with the software titles, giving us around 2,900 software titles. We took it down to just above 2,000. And what we've done is that we've reduced it by creating a product line. Now, a product line is a construct of the ISO 19770 working group basically a software asset management consortium at the ISO, and we've created something that doesn't exist in the software title, but it sounds obvious. As an example, I just said the word Corel. Corel Draw, right, is a product or a product line. And underneath it are versions. The same thing with Microsoft Office Professional Edition. Version 15 is the 15th version, more or less, versus version 22 is the 22nd version, but it's still Microsoft Office. So those are product lines, and I'm going to show them to you here. But before we go there, of course, Microsoft has probably the largest count, but also the largest fiscal footprint. How did we do that? Did we input purchase data? No. This is right off the start. We recognize and have a library of the cost footprint of every, let's just not say every, but a large amount of products from vendors from A to Z, which will allow us to identify, basically from a long tail perspective, what are the vendors that have the biggest fiscal impact on your company. Certainly Microsoft will be one of them, especially if you have Windows Server, SQL Server, and so on. But other vendors will also have a prominent fiscal footprint that should not be, ignored. So let's take a look here at what's going on. Now, on the left-hand side, we have basically reconstructed the tree into a report view. It's almost genealogy. To explain, Microsoft, I'm going to open it up. Underneath Microsoft, if the vendor is a large vendor, such as Microsoft, Adobe, Siemens, Autodesk, Oracle, and so on, we have then reclassified the products into particular families. And if you've ever done a Microsoft audit, you'll recognize these families. You've got the Office Suite family, the SharePoint family, the SQL family, and so on and so on. Inside the Office Suite family, there we go. We've got 365 apps for enterprise for them, and 6,757 installs of Office Professional. That's the product line. Click on it again, and you can see the actual versions. Well, what about licensing? Now, first of all, we have 6,757 installs, but the effective count is 6,748. This is a unique licensing calculation that's available within Streamline. It's built in. And what we're trying to do here is reduce your effective count by automatically calculating usage rights. Let's go take a look here. I'm going to click on Office Professional. Now, whenever you click on something in the tree, based upon where you click on it, and I'll just give you a preview here. If you click on a vendor, you will get to see the summary of the product lines, what's licensable, take a look at the devices, and do an overall entitlement exposure of all licensable products found within that vendor. But if you click on simply one of the product lines, then you can take a look at version dispersion, support, history information, a subset of the devices, and taking a look at the licensing. Now, from a licensing perspective, we put in some data here right now. We have basically, we're out of compliance because there's over 6,000 here. We could type that in or we can input that in. But what I want to take your attention to is right over here, downgrade rights. We have removed 9 of the installs. Why? It's because we don't want to apply licenses to them. Why? Let's take a look at the production state of all these devices. I'm actually going to flip the production, I'm going to flip it around so that you can see 9 instances of software on these devices that we've automatically said they're exempt. You don't need to count them. Don't spend money. Let's take a look at how that actually happened. But before we do that, here is what we call the dog tag. Now, this is the original data collected by your Lansweeper service. And you can see here that there are products that have no vendor and products that have variations of a vendor name, and so on and so on. What we do is that we streamline it. And so that we remove all variations and mutations and omissions and basically expose it in that context. Let's go back to what we were talking about, Microsoft Office. Well, Office, I'm just going to reduce the view here so that you can see, we've got a Java subscription. Oh, look at that. There we go. Office Professional 2016 and 2010 Pro Plus is on this device. If you have a volume license agreement with Microsoft, you don't have to count or license the 2010 Pro Plus. That's a concurrent usage rights or lesser lesser versions rights. It's the same thing. What it means is that you can install 2010, 2007, it keeps going. You only have to have the license for the largest or the greatest version found within that device. So automatically, Streamline will go through all of your devices and exempt accordingly. And this is not just for Microsoft. It's for Corel, it's for Autodesk, it's for Adobe, it's for Siemens. The list goes on. And you can then basically take that number of not the 6,757, but the 6,748, and automatically, by reducing 9, we've already saved you $5,000 just from that product line alone. And all of this is built in and automatic. Now, this is just a licensing view, using Microsoft as an example, just to have you extremely familiar with what you probably already know. And of course, all of the functions that I'm showing you here for Microsoft for licensing are also available in Adobe, Corel, Citrix, Autodesk, MathWorks, Altova, Grammarly, IBM. The list goes on and on. This is not restricted to just Microsoft. These is for all vendors found within your infrastructure. Now, of course, we identify the software to be licensed because we've gone through all the efforts of determining what is a volume license, a volume subscription, versus what are components or code extensions. Now, we have a license type and we have 3 levels of categories. And what this allows you to do is to identify what we like to call the good, the bad, and the ugly from other aspects of software asset management. It's much more than licensing. By identifying the nature of the software, you can identify other risks associated to the software, policy risks, productivity risks, security risks. Let's take the data and flip it real time from a category perspective. And now you can see, let me just flip the count here. Oh, we've got some games, of course. Where are they? Robiox. That's very interesting. But let's flip it over one more time. So yes, by identifying the nature of everything as far as what a game is or malware, and you can see it down there as well as home software, utilities, desktop utilities, you can also, from a good perspective, identify, as an example, where am I with respect to IT security? And what's the distribution of anti-malware or security analysis or encryption across my corporation? This allows you then to do app and vendor rationalization. I have, looks like, standardized on Sophos. If that is the case, why am I introducing malware bytes? Oh, looks like there's a trial version and a single license version as well there. So in this case, you have a couple rogue installs, and you can identify that as well. But it may be that, let me just see if I can find another example here. Stand by. Yeah, let's just take a look at antivirus here. Here's another example. This is live data. So I actually really don't have a clue as to what we'll be finding here. But can we rationalize here as a corporation why we are using both McAfee and Sophos for antivirus? Did we just recently go through a merger in the 2 different departments? Is it because we're in 2 different countries or 2 different locations? Can you rationalize it, right? The rationalization is up to you, but the question of rationalization is what Streamline through the Lansweeper data delivers automatically. Now, the same thing is true for license type. We can identify very quickly what is open source versus volume license versus what is free, as well as identifying what we call homeware. What do we got here? Okay. So Microsoft OneNote Home and Student. We've only found one example. Homeware is software that vendors provide for non-commercial use. And in this particular case, this old version of OneNote Home and Student is not applicable for corporate environments. You may have seen it as well within certain antivirus products or disk drive applications that they basically say, this is the home version. It's not applicable for commercial use. So we'll identify that automatically within Streamline. Now, let's take a look at budget information here. I'm going to go back to, let's go back to the Microsoft licensable here. Actually, I didn't show you that. And let's take a look at the count. Let's assume, hold on here. Let's go by cost footprint. Microsoft Office. Let's say that we're on version 2016 and the new version of Office 2022 is out, or 2021. I mean, this could be SQL Server as well. Now, the question is, they're installed across so many devices, and I'm about to buy the Corvette version of this software, but am I going to be applying it onto Chevette hardware? Well, we can take a look here at the devices. Certainly you've seen this before, but we can also take a look at age analysis. And age analysis allows us to determine the distribution of the age of the software, of the underlying hardware on the software that I happen to be looking at, which is Office Professional. This could be SQL Server, right? This could be Visual Studio. And the question here is, if I'm about to, basically come up with the next version of Office Professional or AutoCAD, in which it is more powerful, call that the Corvette software, am I about to apply it onto hardware that in whole or in part may not be able to handle it? And so there are some devices down here that were purchased in 2013 that might meet that condition. Now, you're probably asking, sure, I have to put in all the purchase data for all this. No, this is automatically calculated within Streamline. Let me show you how we do it. Let's just go to one device here. There it is right there. So we first saw this device in 2023, right, about a week ago. But the birth date is around July 1st, 2017. Why is that? It's because we know that this thing has an Intel Xeon Silver 4114 CPU, which came out around that time. So we're using the CPU description as an indicator of more or less the birth date within about 30 days. And though it may not have been when you have purchased it, we may be off by about 30, 60, or 90 days. So on any one device, it may not be incredibly accurate, but when you put it all together and you stack them all together, you can actually identify what we'll call the previous purchase events, massive purchase events, and also those massive purchase events in the past become death clusters for the future. So we can identify what machines are beyond 3, 5 years with respect to complete depreciation. Because the last thing you want to do is, if you're about to migrate software operations from version 1 to version 2, you do not want to throw out a machine in which it's not fully depreciated. Now, you'll never know that, but we can actually infer it by knowing the age of the device. So if the devices were built in around 2013, chances are that's well beyond a typical 5-year depreciation. But built in 2019, not so much. So that gives you the opportunity to basically assess what to do with respect to moving to the next version of software and whether or not it will actually have a deleterious effect on the hardware. This is just the tip of the iceberg for Streamline for Lansweeper. Again, what we do is that we take the original data of Lansweeper, a small subset of it, put it into a separate account that you see here, and then automatically normalize it and categorize it so that you can not only invoke version and support analysis, but licensing analysis, productivity analysis, policy analysis, risk analysis, budgeting, and support information as well. So to finish it up, Assetlabs Streamline for Lansweeper is a powerful tool when put together with, I'm going to do that. So to wrap it up, Streamline for let's try it again. I'm just going to let that roll. Hold on. So to wrap it up, Streamline from Assetlabs empowers, I blew it again. So to wrap it up, Streamline from Assetlabs propels the powerful Lansweeper data, enriches it, and delivers it to your SAM team for immediately let's try that again. So to wrap it up, Assetlabs Streamline, when empowered by the powerful, hold on. So to wrap it up, Streamline for Lansweeper empowers your SAM. Take two. So to wrap it up, Streamline for Lansweeper empowers your SAM team to transform the Lansweeper data to deliver SAM licensing, policy, productivity, support. I blew it again. So to wrap it up, Streamline for Lansweeper empowers your SAM team to transform Lansweeper to deliver SAM licensing, policy analysis, productivity, risk analysis, budgeting, and support with zero impact on Lansweeper and yourself. I'm Steve O'Halloran from Assetlabs. Thanks for your time.